Here is a riddle that should keep every Indian awake at night. Indian origin executives run Google and Microsoft. More than 50 Fortune 500 companies are led by CEOs born or rooted in India. Indian brains are, demonstrably, among the best on earth at creating technology. And yet, a single American company, Amazon, spends more on research and development in a year than the entire nation of India. All of it. Government, industry, universities, defense labs, combined. The country that exports the world's inventors barely invents. Its fighter jets are French and Russian. Its jet engines are American. Its chips are Taiwanese. For 70 years, whenever India needed cutting-edge technology, it has done the same thing. Pulled out a checkbook. This is not a story about talent. India has talent to burn. This is a story about a system, and it begins with a fire that broke out in several places at once. 1976, Punjab. India does something almost nobody remembers it doing. It builds a semiconductor fab. Semiconductor Complex Limited, SCL. At a time when Taiwan's chip industry barely existed and Samsung hadn't made a single memory chip, India was fabricating integrated circuits on its own soil. Chips for its telephone exchanges, its electronics, its ambitions. Behind Silicon Valley's curve, yes, but in the race, in the game. Then, on the night of February 7, 1989, SCL caught fire. Not in one place. Investigators found the blaze had erupted at several locations simultaneously, a detail that has fueled conspiracy theories for 35 years. Sabotage? By whom? The Intelligence Bureau investigated. Nothing conclusive was ever announced. No one was ever held responsible. Here's the part that matters more than the mystery. The fire didn't kill India's chip industry. The response did. A serious country rebuilds a strategic facility in 18 months. India took 8 years. By the time SCL restarted in 1997, Taiwan's TSMC had conquered the world, and India had left the race it once ran in. One fire, one slow response, and today India imports almost every chip in every device you own. But the fire only finished a story that had started 30 years earlier, with a visitor India turned away. In the 1960s, before Silicon Valley was even a phrase, the American company Fairchild Semiconductor went looking for its first Asian factory. One of the men exploring the options was Robert Noyce, co-inventor of the integrated circuit, future co-founder of Intel. Arguably the most consequential technologist of the 20th century. And one of the places he explored was India. India said, essentially, no, or worse, yes, but. The bureaucracy dragged. The license regime choked. By one account, Noyce was told any factory would be capped at a size too small to be viable. India's gatekeepers looked at the most important industry of the coming century and saw a threat to be regulated. Fairchild went to Malaysia instead. Today, Malaysia, a country with 1/40th of India's population, is a semiconductor powerhouse exporting over $100 billion in electronics. India, 6 decades later, is spending billions in subsidies begging chipmakers to come back. The pattern was set. When invention knocked, India asked for its paperwork. If you want to watch the disease progress in real time, follow one machine, the Kaveri jet engine. 1986, India authorizes its own fighter engine to power the future Tejas. A fighter engine is the hardest machine humans make. Metallurgy at 1600 degrees. Tolerances in microns. China struggled for decades too. But watch how India struggled. And mark that year, 1986, because history ran a controlled experiment. That same year, China launched its 863 program, a decades-long, money-no-object national mission to master strategic technologies. Two giant poor countries, starting the same climb, the same year. Hold that thought. The project was sanctioned 3 years late, funded in dribbles. Starved of testing infrastructure, India didn't even have its own high-altitude test facility, so the engine had to be shipped to Russia to fail. In 2004, it fell short in those trials. In 2008, it was quietly divorced from the Tejas program, roughly 2,800 crore rupees spent. The engine produced 80 kilonewtons of thrust when the Air Force needed 90 plus. And so the Tejas, India's proudly indigenous fighter, flies on an American GE engine, just as we told you in our arms dealer episode. 60 years after the Marut died for lack of an engine, the problem is still not solved. The cavalry is now being revived for drones, and in February 2026, its new afterburner lit up successfully. Genuine progress, 40 years in. The question isn't whether Indian engineers can do it. It's why the system made it take 4 decades. The answer is arithmetic. India spends about 0.65% of its GDP on research and development. China spends 2.64 times more of a much bigger economy. America, 3.6. South Korea, over 5. In absolute terms, India's entire national research and development effort is roughly a tenth of China. And look who spends it. In every inventing nation, private companies fund 70 to 90% of research. In India, the private sector funds barely a third. Why? Because for its first 45 years, India's economy punished invention. The license Raj protected every big company from competition, and a business with no competitors has no reason to invent. The proof rolled on Indian roads for 4 decades. The Ambassador car sold essentially unchanged from the 50s to the 2010s. Why improve it? Indians had nothing else to buy. The habit outlived the system. Indian industry still prefers to license, import, assemble, and trade. Invention was the government's job, and per million people, India fields only a few hundred researchers. China fields 5 times more. Korea, 20 times. Even India's genuine triumphs carry the same signature. India is the pharmacy of the world, supplier of a huge share of the planet's generic medicines. Look closer. Generics are, by definition, copies, brilliant, life-saving manufacturing of molecules discovered somewhere else. Truly new drugs discovered in India in 70 years? You can count them on your fingers. World-class at making, absent at inventing. The universities complete the triangle of neglect. Not one Indian university stands in the world's research top 100. Professors are hired to teach, not to discover. The money for labs is a rounding error. The brightest PhD students look at all of this and book a flight. Which brings us to India's most successful export. Among the top 100 scorers of India's elite technical institutions, studies find nearly 2/3 leave the country. For decades, roughly 40% of IIT graduates left. Among the toppers, far more. They didn't stop inventing, they just stopped inventing for India. And the brains that stayed, most were absorbed by the one world-beating industry India did build: IT services, $250 billion in exports, and, structurally, a rental business. Indian engineers write the world's software. The products and patents belong to the clients. 3 decades of the world's largest tech workforce produced no Indian Google, no Indian SAP, no Indian chip. The industry got rich renting brains by the hour, and never needed to invent a thing. That's the answer to the riddle in our cold open. Indian mines file thousands of patents every year in California, assigned to American corporations. The talent was never the problem. India built the world's best invention pipeline, and pointed it at other countries' economies. One statistic says it all. The last time a scientist won a Nobel Prize for science done in India was 1930, C.V. Raman, working in colonial Calcutta with equipment worth a few hundred rupees. Indians have won science Nobels since. Every single one of them did the winning work abroad. India consoles itself with remittances, the largest such flow on earth. But remittances are wages. The inventions, the patents, the trillion-dollar companies stay where the laboratory is. India keeps the salary. Someone else keeps the future. There is one more twist, though, the strangest one. Because before you conclude that India simply can't invent at home, look at the exceptions. They reveal the actual rule. 1992. India tries to buy cryogenic rocket engines from Russia. America, fearing missile proliferation, strangles the deal. India is denied completely. No checkbook option exists. So ISRO builds its own. It takes 20 painful years, mastering physics only 5 countries possessed. That denied, sanctioned, homegrown engine lineage now launches India's heaviest rockets and helped put a lander on the moon's south pole before anyone else, on a budget smaller than a Hollywood film. Now spot the pattern. It repeats with eerie precision. Late 80s. America refuses to sell India a Cray supercomputer. A team under Vijay Bhatkar builds the Param 8000 in 3 years, on a shoestring. And by 1991, India isn't importing supercomputers. It's exporting them to Germany, Britain, even Moscow. Sanctioned after the nuclear tests, India's missile program flourished. No one would design a payment system for 1 billion poor customers. India built UPI, now the largest in the world. Every time the checkbook was taken away, India invented. Every time buying was possible, India bought. The disease has a name, the import option. Why risk your career on a 10-year engine program that might fail, when you can sign a purchase order that definitely won't? Foreign vendors are safe, proven, blameless. And even scandals around buying, remember Bofors, only teach bureaucrats to fear decisions, never to fund labs. Invention in India isn't impossible, it's optional, and systems never do what's optional. So, is it changing? Honestly, partly. Patent grants have quadrupled in 5 years. A national research foundation has finally been created. Private rockets are flying. Chip fabs are, once again, under construction, 60 years after Noyce got his no. But the master number hasn't moved. Research and development spending has been stuck near 0.7% of GDP for a generation, through governments of every party. Announcements change. The arithmetic doesn't. And remember 1986, the year of the controlled experiment? China's 863 program, fed for 40 years into supercomputers, spacecraft, telecom, and eventually hypersonics and AI. India's same year engine program produced, after 4 decades, 1 successful afterburner test. Same starting line, different religions. One country worshipped the mission, the other worshipped the purchase order. A nation that hosted the inventor of the microchip and showed him the door. A nation that built a fab before Taiwan mattered, watched it burn, and took 8 years to care. A nation whose children run the world's technology companies. From abroad, India doesn't lack inventors. It lacks a country that needs them. Until the day buying becomes harder than building, that invoice will keep arriving. And somewhere in Punjab, a burned-out clean room will keep asking its question, what if?